Chapter 21, Futile Resistance. The assault drones continued their relentless purge. Red lenses swept streets and rooftops, while magic cannons spat death without pause. They moved through the city like ghosts, omnipresent and unavoidable. People were no longer people. They were targets. Their lives had become currency in an economy built on power and ascension. The drones were the enforcers of this new reality. There were no laws now except one. The law of the strong. The city had become a battlefield. A war zone without a name. A war without ideology or justice. They existed for one reason alone. Power and survival. The elevation of a single individual to a level high enough to face what was coming. The city was the price. A sacrifice measured in millions. A11 drifted through the smoke-filled interior of a shopping mall. Shattered skylights spilled fractured daylight onto scenes frozen in terror. Mannequins stood in immaculate poses among the bodies of those who had once admired them. Crimson beams scorched polished marble floors, leaving glowing scars where lives ended. A child stuffed bear lay near a fountain, half melted, its plastic eye staring blankly into nothing. 11 detected movement behind a toppled kiosk. A woman crouched there, her face twisted in panic, clutching a crying infant to her chest. The drone assessed threat level. Negligible. It fired. Twin beams erased both mother and child in a muted flash. The air filled with the sharp scent of scorched fabric and ionized metal, like the aftermath of a lightning strike. A11 moved on. On the roof, Cyranox leaned back on a couch he had brought a few hours earlier after finding the concrete floor unsuitable. Iris was laying next to him, her eyes closed while hugging a pillow to her chest. From a small pile of snacks and food he grabbed a bag of chips, while the city's destruction reduced to a distant, almost soothing hum. He crunched another chip between his teeth, the mundane salt and oil a grotesque contrast to the annihilation below. The experience counter in his vision blurred into an endless climb. Millions of lives translated into rising numbers. It was a calculation, and he was winning. A new sound joined the sirens. Heavy, rhythmic, rotors. The eastern sky darkened as 3 attack helicopters surged into view, angular forms bristling with weapons. They roared through the smoke like a challenge hurled at the silent killers. The lead helicopter, marked with a falcon crest, locked onto A-17 as it emerged from a plume of black smoke. The pilot opened fire. A torrent of 30mm shells tore through the air. Tracer fired burning orange lines toward the drone. The rounds struck nothing. A-17 had already moved. The shells detonated against an office tower, glass and sparks raining down the street. A-17 rotated, its red lenses fixed on the cockpit. A single crimson beam fired, not at the hull, at the rotor assembly. There was no explosion, just a blinding flash and the shriek of tearing metal as the rotor hub disintegrated. The helicopter spun out of control and plunged into the streets below, detonating in a fireball that briefly rivaled the rising sun. On the rooftop, Cyranox sat up and brushed crumbs from his shirt. He watched the fireball fade, irritation flickering across his face. Military response was expected. That did not make it less annoying. A silent confirmation pulsed through his mind. High above, O02 pivoted. Its elongated violet lens locked onto the second helicopter as it banked for another attack run. The emitter extended with a faint hum. A spear of violet energy lanced across the sky. The helicopter ceased to exist, not exploded. Erased. A silent sphere of incandescent debris expanded outward where it had been. The third helicopter broke formation instantly, fleeing toward the horizon at maximum speed. Bane, level up. You are now level 14. Cyranox glanced at the status window as it appeared. Status. Name, Cyranox. Class, Dronemancer. Level, 14. Experience, 0, 27/67 500. Ah, come on. The snack bag slid off his chest and spilled across the concrete as he sat up. So much for 2 million, 7 million people. It would not have made a difference anyway. He stood and looked out over the city. He could not see his drones, but he knew where they were, a tightening ring around the outskirts. At least I sealed the city and chose one with over 20 million people. He opened the notebook and scanned the numbers. 1.8 million in 8 hours. That means almost 2 days of continuous slaughter. He closed the book and looked over the burning skyline. May God have mercy on your souls, he murmured, and forgive me for what I am about to do. A cigarette slid between his lips. He lit it and inhaled deeply. This could be classified as genocide. Smoke drifted from his mouth as he stared toward the horizon. The kill counter flowed steadily. Fires burned. Smoke columns clawed into the sky. Sirens screamed in organized waves now. Coordinated and desperate, armored convoys poured into the main streets. Military green vehicles, soldiers deployed with practiced efficiency, establishing checkpoints and heavy weapons. Slow, clumsy, determined. A-19 hovered above a boulevard choked with wreckage. Its sensors detected an incoming rocket-propelled grenade fired from a nearby rooftop. Trajectory calculated, impact predicted. Instead of evading, A-19 fired. The beam struck the warhead mid-flight. The explosion dispersed harmlessly in a brilliant flash. Before the smoke cleared, twin beams returned fire. The rooftop vanished in a secondary explosion, silenced instantly. From the west, tanks advanced in formation. Treads crushed asphalt. Turrets rotated. Commanders scanned the skyline through binoculars. Symbols of old power. Obsolete ones. O-01 locked onto the lead tank. Its violet lens flared. The beam struck the ammunition compartment. The tank detonated from within, lifted off the ground by its own destruction before crashing back down as a burning wreck. The remaining tanks followed seconds later, erased by coordinated fire. The column became a line of smoldering pyres. Cyranox crushed his cigarette beneath his boot and walked to the edge of the roof. Below him, soldiers fired blindly from behind overturned cars. Bullets pinged uselessly off drone hulls. A-07 descended. It did not use its main cannons. Burst fire activated. Short, rapid beams swept the barricade. The soldiers fell where they stood, bodies riddled with smoking holes. A-07 rose and continued its patrol. Cyranox stood still, absorbing the constant feedback from his drones. Data flowed endlessly through the background of his mind. He lit another cigarette, the small ritual grounding him amid the carnage. Then the sky changed again. Fighter jets screamed across the horizon, delta wings slicing the air. White contrails carved the sky. Air superiority assets, human epics weapons. O-01, O-02, and O-03 responded instantly. A missile launched from the lead jet, radar-guided and heat-seeking, streaking toward O-02. The drone did not evade. They fired. The missile detonated mid-air in a silent bloom of flame. The O-02 returned fire. The jet disintegrated. The remaining fighters scattered, banking hard. It did not save them. The offensive drones accelerated, violet beams cutting clean lines through the sky. In less than a minute, a squadron was gone. The sky fell silent once more. Chapter 22, Silence. As the hours stretched into an interminable twilight, the efforts of the military dwindled to nothing, their futile attempts fading like embers in the night. Sharpshooters with their high-powered rifles, tanks rumbling with thunderous might, fighter jets screaming across the horizon. All had failed to even leave a scratch on Cyranox's formidable form. In his opinion, their best attempt had been the bombing run. They had tried to level the entire city with him still inside it, hoping to bury him beneath tons of rubble and steel. Unfortunately for them, the bomber had only managed to release a handful of payloads before being detected and annihilated by his automated defenses. None of the bombs ever reached the ground, vaporized midair by silent energy beams that sliced through the atmosphere like razors. That had been a full day ago. Since then, there had been no further attempts to interfere. For the last 24 hours, the city had known no sound of weapons beyond the silent, merciless beams of the drones, which continued their systematic extermination of any remaining resistance. Cyranox woke from sleep. For the first time since this had begun, his rest had not been shattered by explosions or the roar of aircraft tearing through the sky. Iris was clinging to him, nuzzled deeply against his chest, her breathing soft and rhythmic against his armored plating. The military must have realized their futility by now. They won't send any more troops to die. He stood on the rooftop, the morning sun a pale, distant light behind a thick veil of smoke that hung over the city like a shroud. He looked down at the city below. The streets were empty, the buildings shattered, the fires burning low. He felt no remorse, no guilt, no regret. He felt nothing but the steady reward of power rising from the ashes of the dead. He sat back down, the backpack still on the ground next to him, while he pulled out a pack of cookies from it. As he opened it, Iris stirred and looked up at him. "Will it be enough? I mean, will we make it in time?" she asked. her voice barely a whisper as she adjusted her position against his armored form, once again laying her head against his shoulder with a weight that felt both comforting and fragile. Cyranox looked over the cityscape, a detached observer to the slaughter he had unleashed. We made good progress so far. We still have half a day left. His voice was steady, betraying none of the calculations running through his mind about the remaining experience points needed. Just half a day left. I just hope level 15 will be enough. The thought flickered through his consciousness like a dying ember. He closed his eyes and focused on his drones. The city below was a wasteland, but it was not empty. The drones were still hunting, their metallic forms moving with eerie precision through the rubble-strewn streets. They were searching for survivors. They were searching for life, and they were finding it. The experience notifications were a steady stream in the corner of his vision, each one a small pulse of progress, slowly but surely pushing him closer to his goal. He spent the rest of the day doing absolutely nothing. He sat on the couch or lay around, letting the hours slip by as his automated forces continued their grim work. Sometimes he and Iris talked, but in the end nothing happened. That was until... Bean, level up. You are now level 15. Congratulations, you are the first to reach level 15. Alert. This achievement is unprecedented and has only occurred a few times throughout the multiverse. Reward. Plus 10% all stats. Plus 10% all stats applied. Reward. Great Labyrinth Core. Cyranox dismissed the cascading blue windows with a casual wave of his metallic hand, the light dissolving into nothingness as his gaze returned to the city below, the fires burning low and sputtering like dying embers, the smoke a thin veil against the blood-orange morning sky. Iris, did you reach level 15 as well? His voice was calm, almost detached as he watched a lone plume of smoke rise from a collapsed skyscraper miles away. She rose from the couch, her movements fluid and silent, and stood behind him, her hands resting lightly on his armored shoulders. Not yet, she murmured, her voice barely above a whisper. I'm still missing less than 100 exp. All right, he said, turning his head slightly to catch her scent. Faint traces of vanilla. Tell me when you've got it and what you received as your reward. After what was only a couple of minutes, though to Cyranox it felt like an eternity of waiting, Iris wrapped her arms around his waist from behind, pressing her cheek against his back. I'm now level 15, she said softly, and I got 7% all stats. Well, we are done here. Iris, let's go. The satisfaction in his tone was palpable, a predator's purr after a successful hunt. With a single, decisive thought, he summoned all of his drones, their metallic forms dissolving into motes of crimson light that vanished into the ether. The city fell into an unnerving silence. The incessant red lights, the low humming of machinery, everything that had marked his dominion disappeared, leaving only the smoke, the dying fires, and the countless dead bodies scattered throughout the ruins. He looked at the desolate landscape one last time, a grim smile tugging at the corners of his lips. He had done it. He had reached level 15. Now he was ready for what was to come. Once again he summoned 2 travel drones, the disc-shaped constructs appearing in front of him with a soft, melodic hum. They lay down on the nearest one, his body settling into the shallow concave indentation designed for comfort during long journeys. He leaned forward, his hands finding the recessed grips near the front, the cold metal a familiar sensation against his palms. North. The drones responded instantly, lifting off the rooftop and accelerating northward with a silent hum that vibrated through Cyranox's armored form. The city fell away below him, sprawling over the broken earth like a corpse. Concrete husks and shattered glass littered the landscape, charred and silent monuments to his dominance. He was leaving it all behind, but he would never forget it. It was the price of him now. A necessary sacrifice. At the horizon, the rising sun a pale, distant light, its weak rays struggling to pierce the thick veil of smoke that clung to the city like burial shrouds. He closed his eyes and let the wind wash over him, a symbol of the freedom he had earned, cool against his plating and carrying the faint, metallic scent of blood and ash. The great labyrinth core. He dismissed the thought as the drone sliced through the morning sky, its movement so smooth it felt like floating on air. After 8 hours of uneventful travel, he spotted a beautiful spot that would make a good campsite. It wasn't too far from his former home, but still a good distance away. a perfect balance between familiarity and isolation. After landing, Cyranox looked around. A small river flowed close to a clearing, its gentle murmur a stark contrast to the silence of the dead city. They descended through the canopy and touched the ground with barely a sound. Iris stood right next to him. All around them was nothing but the forest, dense and alive, its green canopy a vibrant promise of what lay ahead. Chapter 23. A small home in the forest. He summoned 3 travel drones and 4 additional reconnaissance drones. Fly to the city, scan for females that catch my interest. Hover above them and notify the travel drones for pickup. Bring them to me. The drones split instantly, each type accelerating at its own optimal speed. Next, he turned and summoned a few cargo drones. You will acquire housing, a mobile camper, a large shed, a pre-built home, something comfortable. One of the cargo drones vanished from sight. Are you certain this is a wise allocation of resources? Iris asked. Her voice was calm, posture perfectly still. Cyranox turned to her, his mouth curved upward, teeth briefly visible. As he was fully turned, the smile was nowhere to be seen. I am sure, Iris, we have been working hard. We deserve some recreation, and consider it as resource acquisition. We want a place to sleep in, comfortable bedding, and a secure location from the elements. We also want allies. Loyalty is more easily secured through shared experiences and the promise of safety. He stepped back, his eyes dark with intent. This is not a 2-person game. I want a party. If not in the main team, then nearby. Who keeps order if we are both gone? The logic was sound. Uncomfortable, but sound. Iris inhaled slowly, already calculating outcomes and contingencies. Understood. I will prepare a secure location for our new acquisitions. She scanned the forest, evaluating terrain and sightlines. Her gaze settled on a small, secluded clearing hidden deep among the trees. In a single fluid motion, she activated Blade's step, vanishing in a shimmer of arcane distortion and reappearing at the center of the clearing. The ethereal way-ender formed in her hands, its blade humming with power. She swung, trees fell cleanly, trunks severed with surgical precision. Undergrowth vanished. The ground leveled beneath her movements. Within minutes, a defensible camp had taken shape, a temporary base carved from the forest itself. I am ready, Cyranox, she called out. He smiled, the skin tightening at the corners of his eyes, while 10 more cargo drones fly off with the command to gather all the food they can get from local supermarkets. So it would seem, now we just have to wait for the cargo drone to bring us your temporary residence. When our guests arrive, you will make sure they don't run away, my dear. He sat down on a log before continuing. It's almost time. The mana infusion will begin in a few hours. I did all I could to bring us to level 15, and I did it. Now we have to wait and see if it was enough. Cyranox did not have to wait long. The first reconnaissance drone pulls with an alert, its signal painting a clear picture in his mind. A young woman, late teens, jogging alone through a park. She was of average height, with a lean, developing figure with shoulder-length dirty blonde hair tied back in a messy ponytail. It was still a strange sensation to just know something from so far away and many places at the same time. It was almost disorienting to be in so many places at once and yet not. The drone's assessment was blunt, aesthetically pleasing, young and female. He gave a mental nod. A travel drone swooped in silently, its anti-gravity field enveloping her before she could even register the breeze. She vanished from the path in a faint distortion of light. The drone flew for a few minutes, then, a bit later, emerged in the clearing. The young woman still like a statue on top the drone. The drone itself vanished in blue sparks. The young woman came stumbling out of the sparks, gasping in confusion. Before she could scream, Iris moved, not with violence, but with a simple, overwhelming presence. The half-wolf, eldritch knight stepped out from between the trees, her silver strands in her mane catching the light, her amber eyes calm but unnervingly intense. The girl froze, terror rooting her to the spot. This was not a kidnapper. This was something out of a nightmare or a fantasy. You are safe, Iris said, her voice a low, steady rumble that was more calming than it should have been. You will not be harmed, but you will stay here. Understand? The girl, trembling and wide-eyed, could only manage a weak nod. Iris, honey, you are scaring our guest. Come here, Cyranox said calmly while patting his thigh. She stopped, a slight twitch in her ears before she padded over to him. "Who are you?" the girl stammered out. Cyranox looked at her and gave a small sigh. "Call me Cyranox. We mean you no harm. But in a few hours, the world you knew won't exist anymore. The rules of it won't apply anymore, but there will be no one enforcing them. At least that's what I believe will happen." Cyranox scratched Iris behind the ear. "Iris, let's wait for the rest. I don't want to repeat myself," she growled softly as she nuzzled into the touch. "She behaves like a puppy." The drones started to come in. First were cargo drones that brought food. He commanded them to dump it at the edge. In less than 10 minutes, a literally mountain of food was created. I have forgotten about the 10 times multiplier that of the beat tons of food from just one. I send out 10 of them. In that moment, a cargo drone descended through the canopy and dropped a large living unit. It landed with a loud thud. The pre-built home looked just like a storage container that undergone a home renovation. On first glance, one would mistake it for a typical home, just in box shape. Then, seemingly without rhyme or reason, the cargo drone began to simply throw out the entire contents of a furniture store in front of it. Table, chairs, beds, an entire bathroom. Everything imaginable was dropped there. "Iris, you will be in charge of that." He motioned to the pile of furniture and the cloud of blue sparks above it. Afterwards, he turned and walked towards the growing pile of food at the edge of the clearing, bending down slightly to pick up a glass of sausages. With the twist, the lid pops off. He picked 2 more things from the pile. He was eating as nothing out of the ordinary just happened. All the while, the young woman just watched from the sidelines, mouth slightly agape from witnessing something skin of a fever dream. Chapter 24. Yes. With each new arrival, the tableau in the clearing changed. The second was a young Asian girl, plucked from a quiet study session. She appeared with a textbook still clutched in her hand, her expression one of sheer, uncomprehending shock. She had petite, slender frame with delicate features and this beautiful long, straight black hair falling past her shoulders. The third was a woman in her mid-20s, a striking, almost sculpted physique barely concealed by her charcoal business suit with a pencil skirt. Her long, fiery red hair was styled in a high ponytail. She landed in a fighting stance, but the sight of Iris and the hovering drones broke her resolve instantly. The last came mid-sentence. Her provocative club attire was catching not only his eyes. Wearing a skin-tight, fluorescent pink crop top that barely covers her ample chest and a black micro-miniskirt with fishnet stockings, the heeled platform boots complete the look, designed for nightlife and a party that might end not in her own bed. Her hair was platinum blonde, styled in loose waves that frame a heavily made-up face with a few strands of pastel colors in them. Confident swagger dissolving into pure, adulterated fear as she got dropped by the travel drone before them. 4 women, gathered from different walks of life, now united by their shared helplessness. They gazed at the surreal events unfolding before them, mountains of food being brought by floating cubes that dropped far more than their size would allow. An anthropomorphic, wolf-like woman, and amidst it all, a man behaving as if it were just a normal Thursday. "Looks like the party is all here now. Would you like to wait for a more comfortable arrangement?" Cyranox's question was casual, yet carried an undercurrent of absolute authority. He gave them no chance to answer. "I won't. So listen closely. My name is Cyranox. This is Iris. In a few hours, your world, everyone you know, will be thrust into a new reality, a violent one. One where the strong survive and the weaker prey." He took a short breath before continuing. "Count thyself fortunate, for you were chosen to be saved from that fate. If I was wrong, I return you, no harm done." The silence stretched, heavy and absolute. They stared at him, a desperate mix of fear and a dawning, horrifying hope in their eyes. Cyranox let it hang there before continuing. "Tell me," he said at last, "what happens to society when authority loses the power to enforce its rules?" Finally, the one dressed for a night out, Sarah, found her voice. It was shaky, but defiant. "Chaos. People would do whatever they wanted, take whatever they wanted." "Precisely," Cyranox nodded, a grim smile touching his lips. "What do you believe will be the first commodities on the shopping list, if there were no rules that govern behavior?" Vanessa, the one with the dancer's body beneath the business outfit, flinched. "Power. Control over others." "Good. Very good." Cyranox slowly rose from his place on the log. "You see, my dear, that is precisely why you are here. You are not just being saved. You are being recruited. You can stay here with Iris and me, be safe. When the system comes, you will have no power to defend yourself. But if you accept, if you serve me, you will be my assets. I will protect my own. I will grant you the power to survive. In exchange, you will do as I say, without question. Iris, they will assist you. Serenox turned and walked toward the house, the women watching him with a mixture of fear and awe. He stepped inside, the door stayed open behind him, leaving them alone with Iris. Iris turned to the women huddled together in fear. Come, she said, her voice calm and absolute. Our new home will not furnish itself. The furniture needs to be sorted. She gestured with one claw toward the scattered chaos of chairs, tables, and other furniture. The red-haired woman, Vanessa, straightened slightly. A flicker of defiant pride surfaced despite the terror shaking her frame. We are not your slaves, she said, her voice trembling but audible. You cannot just... Iris moved faster than thought. One moment she stood several steps away. The next, her clawed hand rested lightly against Vanessa's throat. The touch was gentle. The threat was not. Silver eyes burned with predatory intensity as a low growl vibrated through her chest. I can. Iris purred, lips drawing back to reveal sharp teeth. And I will. Her claws pressed just enough to make the point unmistakable. Serenox considers you an investment. I consider you expendable. Your life has value only while it remains useful to him. Now, you will begin, or you will be the first piece of trash I dispose of this morning. She withdrew her hand. Vanessa stumbled backward, her face drained of color, defiance shattered into raw terror. The other women watched in frozen silence as the lesson settled in with brutal clarity. They were no longer people. They were assets. Slowly, reluctantly, they began to move. Tables and chairs were lifted. Furniture was dragged toward the silent, box-like structure that served as their new home. Their movements were clumsy, driven by fear rather than coordination, but none dared stop. The clearing changed. What had been chaos and panic slowly reshaped itself into a crude campsite, a fragile outpost of order carved into the forest. Iris stood watch throughout, her posture relaxed but dominant, her amber eyes missing nothing. Iris, why are you just standing there? He asked calmly. When you are done with the furniture, you can store the food in the sheds. He gestured toward a row of sheet metal sheds lining the edge of the clearing. The house itself was not impressive. It was cramped, plain, and poorly insulated, but it was shelter, protection from the elements. He watched as the women carried furniture inside, slowly furnishing the 5 small rooms one by one. Outside again, he ran his fingers lightly along Iris' back. I do not want you slacking off, he said quietly, and you will not treat them as slaves. Chapter 25. System Announcement. Serenox woke to a heavy feeling on his chest. Iris, get off me. There was no reaction to it. He placed his hand on the body lying on top of him and pushed lightly. But instead of fur, his fingers met bare skin. His eyes snapped open. It was Sarah. The platinum blonde party girl lay frozen against him, her body trembling uncontrollably. Her wide eyes were filled with raw terror, her breathing shallow and uneven. I just thought you would be lonely. I'm sorry. I will go. No, he said, his voice a low, steady rumble. Stay. He sat up slowly, the blanket sliding down to his waist. Sarah stiffened as if expecting pain, but none came. He looked at her for a moment, then smiled faintly. You're not scared of me, are you? No, she lied, her voice a trembling whisper. Oh, he murmured, amused. Aren't you adorable? He swung his legs out of bed, playing all tough. Sarah flinched violently at the touch that never came. Her body went rigid, every muscle tensing. She did not pull away, but the muscles in her neck stood out and her knuckles were white. The sharp intent in her eyes had vanished, replaced by a tremor in her hands. He saw it clearly. The offer was not a play for power. It was a bid for survival, an attempt to align herself with the person in control of the room. How far are you willing to go, little one? His breath was warm against her ear as he whispered his question. She flinched but did not move away. Please, just don't hurt me, she whispered, her body trembling uncontrollably. I'll do. I'll do whatever you want. Cyranox's smile widened as she shifted on his chest. No, you don't have to go that far. Not yet, at least. His smile disappeared before he slowly pushed her back into the mattress. I won't hurt you. Let's see what happens today before we move on. She lay there frozen as he stood, pulling on his pants and shirt. Without another word, he left the bedroom. Outside, Iris leaned against the wall. Her ears were folded back. She must have heard it all. He looked into her amber eyes, a flicker of something unreadable in them, before he walked past her into the living room. The other three captives were huddled together on a worn-out sofa, their faces pale with fear. They watched him, their eyes wide, bodies tense. He ignored them for the moment and walked to the kitchen, grabbing a glass of water. The silence in the small prefab house was heavy, broken only by the distant rustle of wind through the trees outside. "Relax," he said, his voice echoing in the cramped space. From behind him, Iris wrapped her arms around him and bit into his shoulder. The bite was strong, but not enough to draw blood. It was a clear message, a display of possessiveness. Cyranox flinched slightly but did not pull away. He turned in her embrace, his hands gently cupping her face. Her amber eyes were intense, a mix of jealousy, hurt, and a fierce loyalty. "Iris," he said softly, his thumb stroking her muzzle. "I'm not going anywhere. But I need resources. I need allies. And sometimes allies come with attachments." Iris's ears twitched, her lips drawing back slightly to reveal a hint of teeth. She was silent for a long moment, her gaze searching his, before she finally relaxed her grip, though her arms remained wrapped around him. Just then, the world went silent. The world ground to a halt. It was not a sound. It was not a vibration. It was a sudden, absolute cessation of everything. The wind died mid-breeze. The birds froze mid-flight. Leaves hung motionless on their branches. Time itself seemed to hold its breath. Then the sky bled. A deep, impossible crimson spread across the heavens like a wound in the fabric of reality, pulsing with a slow, cosmic rhythm. A pressure descended, immense and crushing, not on the body, but on the soul itself. The very air felt thick, charged with an alien energy that made the teeth ache and the skin prickle. A chime echoed not in the ears, but directly inside the mind of every living being. A sound that was both infinitely complex and perfectly simple. A window of light materialized before Cyranox's eyes, overlapping the real world, before a quiet, soothing voice spoke the written words. "Global announcement. Inhabitants of planet Earth designation 734, Sector 82 Gamma. Your world is being integrated into the greater multiverse. Reality is being rewritten. Physics are being recalibrated. Remain calm, adapt, survive." The message hung in the air for a heartbeat before vanishing. The pressure intensified, the crimson sky pulsing faster. Then came the pain. Not a physical agony, but a deep, cellular rewriting. The energy of mana, raw and untamed, flooded the planet, a torrent of alien power that saturated every atom of matter. System notification. Alert! For ending over 17 million lives before the system's descent, you have been granted a permanent title. This title will be visible for all. Title, genocidal. That's a bit much for a title, don't you think? He was a monster, a true monster, and now he had the title to prove it. Cyranox felt a light tingle wash over his body, but the girls, all four, were laying on the floor or the couch, convulsing from pain. As quick as the feeling came, it disappeared, but it left the girls twitching on the floor. Then came a second, more localized chime, directed at the 5 individuals in the room. A new window materialized before Cyranox, this one personal. System notification. Mana infusion stage 1, complete. Includes ascension of all living beings on this planet, formation of nodes, dungeons, and governmental systems. The system integration has begun. Stage 2 starts in 13 days, 23 hours, 59 minutes, 55 seconds. The crimson light in the sky began to recede, fading back to a pale, washed-out blue. The world slowly came back to life, the wind resuming its gentle rustle, the birds chirping tentatively, but the air, the light, even world felt different. The everything was different. A fundamental change had occurred, a rewriting of reality itself. Cyranox looked at Iris, who stood beside him, her posture tense but her expression unreadable. With the 4 women on the floor he looked at, their bodies slowly ceasing their convulsions as they regained consciousness, their eyes wide with a mixture of pain and a new, terrifying understanding. The age of man was over, the age of the system had begun. Cyranox slipped out from Iris's embrace, his movements fluid and sure. He walked to the door and opened it, the bright sunlight a stark, unwelcome intrusion. He flinched, a sudden, sharp pain shooting through his eyes. Fuck me, that stings. He summoned 4 recon drones and sent them to scout and map the area. System notification. 4 of 4 active drones. Minus 20 tech points. The world outside was no longer the one he knew. The trees were taller, their leaves a more vibrant shade of green. The air was clearer, filled with a faint, sweet scent he couldn't identify. He could feel the new energy, the mana, permeating everything, a constant, subtle hum at the edge of his senses. He looked at his hands, a faint, almost invisible aura surrounding them, a tangible manifestation of the power that now coursed through him and the world. Slowly he turned towards the 4 girls. Who of you played video games in their free time? The question hung in the still, charged air, a moment of silent stretch, heavy with unspoken terror and confusion. Then Vanessa, the redhead with the dancer's body, raised a trembling hand. I did. She stammered, her eyes wide. Some are, Petus. Why? Good, Cyranox said, a cold, calculating glint in his eyes. Then you understand the concept of classes, of leveling, of becoming stronger. He looked at each of them, his gaze intense and unwavering. You have a choice now, a real one. You can remain helpless, pray for the monsters that will now roam this world, or you can become strong. You can become my assets, my party members. You won't just pick a class at random or because it sounds nice. I want to hold off and not pick anything at this moment. The system is too unpredictable. I want to see if there are hidden classes where if one can get something else than the normal garbage. I will choose your classes. I will mold you into what I need you to be. In exchange, I will protect you. I will train you. I will make you strong. But you will be mine. Your loyalty, your lives, will belong to me. He let the words sink in, watching the flicker of fear and hope in their eyes. The world outside had changed, but the rules of power were the same. It was all about leverage. And he had all of it. We accept, Vanessa finally said, her voice trembling but firm. We'll do whatever it takes to survive. Cyranox turned from the window, a grim smile on his face. It was by then that one of his drones picked up something abnormal. It was something that gave of a high concentration of mana, and it was only about 5 kilometers out from where they were. Iris, one of my drones, found something that gives off a high amount of mana. Any thoughts? He asked while looking at her. It is likely a dungeon. She responded instantly, her administrative knowledge surfacing. They are system-generated combat instances designed for controlled advancement. They are finite environments with a defined objective. Full clearance. They scale to the world's status and provide reliable, but challenging, opportunities for leveling and acquiring resources. The entry requirement is typically level 10. It said there are lower or higher ones out there. A dangerous glint entered her eyes. It would be an excellent test of our capabilities, and a proving ground for the new assets. Interesting, Cyranox murmured, a plan already forming in his mind. He looked at the 4 women, their faces a mixture of fear and a dawning, desperate hope. It seems that I have to leave you for a while. I will check this dungeon out, and if I'm certain that I can pull all of you through it, I bring you along. Iris, you keep them safe until I return. He dismissed the drone over the dungeon and summoned a travel drone, holding on to it. As it pulled him out the door and into the distance, Cyranox left the women to Iris, the wolf woman giving him a possessive glance as he departed. Only 5 kilometers away from his current location, he didn't have to travel for long, the drone carrying him at a blistering pace. He arrived at the entrance, a swirling vortex of deep blue energy with a light purple touch to it, a gateway to another world. The drone dissolved beneath him as he landed on the soft grass. With excitement, he looked at the entrance, a sense of anticipation building within him. He had reached level 15, and he was ready for what was to come. After he took a deep breath and touched the portal,